The storm clouds above the ruined valley were thick and silent, holding a cold gray color that made everything beneath them feel even more empty. Leora moved carefully across the broken ground, her steps light, her eyes alert. She was from the Talon species, known for their tall frames and soft blue skin. But today she felt small. Her home colony had fallen days ago, leaving her wandering through a land that once held life, but now held only fear. She kept repeating her mother's words in her mind. Never approach a human. Never speak to a human. Humans only bring danger. Since childhood, she had heard stories of humans unpredictable, reckless, and impossibly strong. Her elders called them the walking storms. They said humans did not fear anything, and that made them twice as dangerous. So Leora kept her distance, always avoiding their patrols and camps. Even today, while traveling through the valley, she took great care to walk where no human would see her. The war between species was over, but her fear was not. She stopped beside a fallen tree and pushed her back against it, taking a slow breath. Her fine, silver hair hung over her face as she tried to calm herself. She was tired, hungry, and alone, but she refused to give up. There had to be a safe outpost or a transport beacon somewhere nearby. She just had to keep moving. A distant sound echoed across the valley. A sharp crack, then another. Not thunder. Footsteps. Her heart jumped. She ducked lower, listening. The ground carried the soft tremor of someone moving quickly. Someone heavy. Her eyes widened. Humans. Her hands shook. She looked around for somewhere to hide, but the ruined tree behind her was the only cover left. If a human came this way, he would see her. She pressed herself deeper into the shadow, hoping they would pass without noticing. But the footsteps did not fade. They grew louder. A voice followed, sharp, tired, but not angry. "Please, don't fall now. Just a little further." The voice was male, rough with exhaustion, but gentle. Leora frowned. Humans were not supposed to sound gentle. That alone confused her enough to peek over the fallen tree. What she saw made her breath catch. A single human soldier stumbled across the valley floor, carrying something over his shoulder. His uniform was torn, his helmet cracked, and his steps unsteady. Dust and mud covered him, yet he forced himself forward. The weight he carried looked like a collapsed supply pack. But as she looked closer, she realized it was a wounded alien, one of her kind. Leora covered her mouth. Why would a human carry a talon? Nothing in her childhood stories had prepared her for that image. Humans were supposed to leave aliens behind, not save them. Her fear mixed with confusion, and she found herself frozen, unable to look away. The soldier reached a stone ledge and gently lowered the injured talon. He rested on one knee, breathing hard. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not leaving you. Just don't close your eyes yet." His voice carried pain, but also care. Not the cold tone of a monster. Not the cruelness she had been taught. This human was doing everything he could to keep another life safe. Leora stepped out from behind the tree before she could stop herself. Her foot struck a pebble. It bounced. The soldier's head snapped toward the sound. Their eyes met across the broken ground. Leora froze. He froze. For a long moment, neither moved. The human's eyes were sharp but not threatening. A deep brown filled with caution and something else she didn't expect. Relief? Hope? She could not tell. Slowly, he raised one hand, not reaching for a weapon, not stepping closer, just showing his empty palm. "It's all right," he said softly. "I'm not here to harm you." Leora felt her pulse racing. Every part of her training said she should run. But something held her still. Something in his tone, in his eyes, in the way he handled the injured alien beside him. He didn't move. He waited. She swallowed, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Why? Why would you help one of us?" The soldier looked down at the wounded talon. His face softened. "Because he needed help," he answered simply. "War is over. We don't leave people to die. People, not enemies, not aliens. People." The word hit her like a warm wave, breaking the cold myths she had believed for so long. She stepped closer, slowly, watching his every motion. He didn't flinch. He didn't reach for anything. He only opened space beside him, as if inviting her to help if she wished. "I'm Ethan," he said gently. "Corporal Ethan Hale." She almost didn't reply, but something in his calm voice encouraged her. "Leora," she whispered. He smiled softly, a tired but real smile. "Good to meet you, Leora." His smile confused her more than anything else. Humans were not supposed to smile at her kind. They were supposed to be cold, fierce, unpredictable. Yet this human looked at her like they were equal beings. Leora knelt beside the wounded alien and inspected his condition. The soldier watched her with quiet respect. "He's dehydrated," she said. "Weak. He needs rest and water." "I have some in my pack," Ethan replied. "But I can't move him alone anymore." His voice trembled, not from fear but from exhaustion. "You carried him a long distance?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "Found him trapped under debris. I couldn't leave him." Leora paused. That simple statement felt heavier than any story she had heard about humans. She finally understood why he looked exhausted. He had carried a full-grown Talon for miles. She reached for the water container he offered, making sure their hands didn't touch. Still, he didn't rush her or make her feel cornered. He allowed her to stay in control, as if he understood her fear. She gave the wounded alien small sips. Ethan watched carefully, ready to assist but not interfering. His patience was something she had never expected. When the injured Talon finally rested comfortably, Ethan lowered his head and breathed out. "Thank you." Leora blinked. "You thank me?" "Of course." He smiled again, though he looked ready to collapse. "You helped him. That matters." His kindness unsettled her, but not in a bad way. It pulled at something deep inside her, something long buried under fear and warnings. She studied him quietly. His uniform was torn, and beneath it, she could see old bruises, signs of earlier fights. Yet he still put others before himself. "How long have you been walking?" she asked. "Since dawn," he said. "Didn't want to stop until I found shelter." "You should rest." Ethan hesitated. "I didn't want to scare you." Her eyes widened a little. He had thought of her comfort instead of his own? That cracked another myth in her heart. You are not like the stories," she said softly. He looked confused. "What stories?" She lowered her gaze. "That humans destroy everything. That you bring danger. That you cannot be trusted." He sighed, not offended, only tired. "I know some humans earned that reputation. But not all of us want war. Some of us just want peace." Leora felt something shift inside her. A small spark of trust. Fragile, but real. Ethan leaned back against the stone wall, his eyes closing for a moment. "If you want to leave, I understand. But if you stay, I'll make sure you're safe. Both of you." His words were gentle, not commanding. He offered protection, not control. She did not sense any threat in him. Slowly, carefully, Leora sat a little closer, not touching, but no longer keeping a large distance. "You saved someone of my kind," she said quietly. "And you show me respect. Maybe I was wrong to fear you." Ethan opened his eyes, tired but sincere. "Maybe we can learn from each other," he said. Leora felt warmth in her chest at those words. She didn't fully trust him yet, but something inside her sensed that this human was different. He was breaking every myth she had been taught. For the first time since the war ended, she didn't feel alone. The storm clouds above finally broke, not with rain, but with a faint, pale light, pushing through soft, gentle, hopeful. And Leora realized she didn't fear the human soldier anymore. She wanted to understand him. The quiet moment that settled in the valley felt unreal to Leora. Only an hour ago she had been hiding behind a fallen tree, terrified of being seen by a human. Yet now she sat in the same ruined valley beside one close enough to hear his tired breathing as he rested against the stone wall. She didn't understand how everything changed so quickly. It confused her, but it didn't frighten her anymore. The wounded Talon lay sleeping between them. Leora occasionally checked his pulse. Ethan occasionally checked it too, but always waited for her to finish first. As if showing respect for her leadership, that small detail kept surprising her. She watched the human soldier quietly. His eyes were half open now, scanning the horizon even though he could barely keep himself sitting upright. "You should rest," she said. "I will," he replied with a soft smile, just keeping a lookout for trouble. "You are exhausted," she said. "Why do you keep watching the valley?" "Because you two are my responsibility now," Ethan answered simply. Those words struck her again. Responsibility. Humans in the stories she grew up with did not take responsibility for aliens. They avoided them. They overpowered them. They never protected them. But Ethan was different. Every small action proved it more. She moved a little closer, not to touch him, just to speak more comfortably. "You do not know me," she said gently. "Yet, you protect me." He turned his head toward her. "I don't need to know you to value your life." That statement made her chest tighten with a strange warmth. She didn't know what to call it. Gratitude? Trust? It felt new. The wind brushed over the valley. Far in the distance, metal fragments clicked in the breeze, pieces of old war machines. Quiet now, but still haunting. Leora hugged her arms around herself. She hated how the ruins felt empty. She hated how it reminded her of loss. Ethan noticed her discomfort. "There's an emergency shelter 2 hills over," he said. "If we work together, we could carry him there." Leora hesitated. "But you already carried him for so long." "Yes," he said with a weak laugh. "Which is why I definitely need your help this time." She felt a small smile forming on her lips before she could stop it. Ethan hadn't smiled since the moment they met, not fully. But when he saw her smile, even a little, his expression softened more. It was the first warm moment between them, something gentle in the middle of a broken world. Leora breathed in slowly. "We should wait until he wakes up. Moving him now might hurt him." "You're right," Ethan agreed. "We'll wait." They fell into a quiet silence. Not tense, not uncomfortable, just calm. Leora studied him again. His uniform had scorch marks along the sleeves. His vest was half torn. There were scratches across his face, but none of them looked serious. She wondered how many battles he had survived before meeting her. "You fought in the war?" she asked softly. His expression changed, slightly sad, slightly thoughtful. "Yes," he said. "But I didn't want to. Most soldiers didn't." "Why did you join then?" "Because someone had to keep people safe," he said. "Human or alien. Doesn't matter." She tilted her head. "But, your people say aliens are dangerous. My people say humans are dangerous. Both sides fear each other." Ethan nodded. "Fear spreads faster than truth." She looked down at the ground, thinking about that. Her entire life, she had listened to warnings about humans. She had accepted them as fact. But now she realized how quickly fear could become a story, and how stories could blind whole generations. "You don't seem afraid of me," she said. "I'm not," Ethan answered. "You haven't given me any reason to be." Leora felt something warm inside her again. It was strange how a few simple sentences could change so much. A soft groan came from the injured Talon. Leora leaned forward quickly. "He is waking." Ethan pushed himself upright, wincing softly from fatigue. "Good. He needs to drink more water." She helped the wounded alien sit up slowly. Ethan handed her the water pack without needing to be asked. Leora supported the Talon gently as he drank. After a moment, the alien opened his eyes fully and looked at Ethan, and froze. Fear flashed across his face. Leora quickly spoke. "It is all right. He helped you. He carried you." The injured Talon blinked in confusion. His gaze shifted between her and Ethan, unsure of what to believe. Ethan didn't move. He kept his hands open, palms visible, showing no threat. Finally, the wounded alien looked at Leora again. This human saved me? Yes, she said softly. He did. Ethan smiled awkwardly. Not the cleanest rescue. But I tried. The Talon let out a small breath relief. Or maybe disbelief. Thank you, he whispered weakly. You're welcome, Ethan replied. Leora watched the moment carefully. She could see the exact second the injured alien realized Ethan meant no harm. His body relaxed. The tension faded. It was a fragile moment of trust, but it was real. We should still get him to the shelter, Ethan said, regaining focus. There's medical equipment there. Leora nodded. Can you walk? She asked the injured alien. He shook his head slightly. Not far. That's all right, Ethan said. We'll support you. Together they lifted him, Leora taking one side, Ethan the other. She expected their teamwork to feel awkward, but it didn't. They matched each other's movements naturally, adjusting so the wounded alien didn't feel pain. Ethan kept asking softly, You okay? While Leora guided them toward stable ground. As they moved, Leora noticed something important. Ethan always kept her on the safer side of the path, as if placing himself between her and any possible danger. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply instinct for him to protect. It made her heart feel strangely full. They walked slowly across the valley, supporting the injured Talon with every step. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain. The path became steeper as they reached the first hill. You should stop if you get tired, Leora said to Ethan. He shook his head. I'll rest once we reach the top. You always say that, she said softly. He glanced at her with a faint smile. And I always mean it. Halfway up the hill, the injured alien stumbled slightly. Ethan tightened his grip instantly, steadying him before he fell. Leora felt the shift too, and adjusted her hold. Their teamwork felt surprisingly natural. You two make a good team, the injured alien whispered between breaths. Leora looked away quickly, heat rising in her cheeks. Ethan coughed softly, trying to act casual. We're just doing what's needed, he said, but both of them knew it felt like more. When they finally reached the top of the hill, the view opened wide. The emergency shelter was visible in the distance, a small metallic dome built into the hillside, its entrance half covered by vines and dust. There, Ethan said, pointing. We're close. They continued downward. The ground was softer here, and the path much easier. Leora guided them around loose stones, while Ethan checked the sky for signs of trouble. When they reached the shelter door, Ethan set the injured Talon gently against the wall. He brushed off the dust and looked at Leora. Could you support him while I open it? Yes, she said. Ethan pulled a small access device from his pack and tapped it against the door panel. The metal door unlocked with a dull click. Cool air drifted out from inside. He turned back to them and helped guide the injured alien through the entrance. The inside was dim but safe. There were beds, old medical supplies, and a small generator humming quietly. As soon as the wounded Talon was resting on one of the beds, Ethan leaned back against the wall, breathing slowly. Leora could see how tired he had become. His shoulders sagged. His eyes were heavy. You should rest now, she said. He tried to argue, opening his mouth as if to speak, but he couldn't hide the exhaustion anymore. Leora stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. You protected us. Let me protect you for a moment. Ethan stared at her, surprised. Then he nodded slowly and slid down to sit on the floor, his head leaning lightly against the wall. Leora sat across from him, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest as he finally relaxed. She didn't feel fear anymore. She didn't feel doubt. She felt safe around him, safer than she expected to feel around a human soldier. Her mother's warnings floated through her mind again, but they no longer held the same power. Ethan had broken every myth, and now, sitting in the quiet shelter with him, she realized something simple but important. She didn't want him to leave. Not now. Not later. Not ever. But she kept that thought deep inside her heart. For now, she watched him rest, unaware of how much her world had already begun to change. The emergency shelter felt warmer when the generator lights slowly brightened the room. The faint glow softened the cold metal walls and gave the space a feeling of safety. Leora sat near the wounded Talon, quietly checking his pulse and temperature. Ethan slept across the room, leaning against the wall with his arms folded loosely. His breathing was calm now, steady and peaceful. Seeing the human soldier asleep made Leora strangely relaxed too. She had never been this close to a human before, especially not without fear. But now she felt a strange comfort in watching him rest. She noticed the way exhaustion had softened his face, how even in sleep he looked ready to protect someone. She pulled a thin blanket from a storage cabinet. For a moment she hesitated, looking at Ethan. Talon traditions said never to approach a sleeping warrior. It was considered disrespectful, but Ethan was human, and he had shown her nothing but kindness. Quietly, she walked over and draped the blanket across him, making sure not to disturb him. He moved slightly, adjusting to the warmth, but didn't wake. Leora stepped back and exhaled softly. She didn't realize the injured Talon was watching her. "You care for him," the alien whispered, his voice weak but awake. Leora turned quickly, surprised. "I only gave him a blanket," she said. The injured Talon smiled faintly. "No, you care for him." Her eyes lowered. She didn't know how to answer. She barely understood how she felt herself. She sat beside him, unsure what to say. "He saved my life," she said softly. The wounded Talon nodded slowly. "Humans, maybe they are not what we believed." Leora looked toward Ethan again. His presence filled the room with quiet strength. "He is not." Hours passed slowly. The wounded Talon slept again, his breathing steady. Leora checked supplies, prepared water, and cleaned small scratches on her arms. Still, she kept glancing at Ethan, as if making sure he was still there. Finally, he woke with a small groan, rubbing his eyes. "Morning already?" Ethan asked, stretching his sore neck. "There is no morning here," Leora said softly. "But you slept well." "That is enough." He looked at the blanket draped over him, then at her. "Did you?" She nodded quietly. A warm, grateful smile spread across his face. "Thank you, Leora." The simple words made her heart flutter in a way she didn't understand. Ethan stood and walked to the water dispenser. "How's our friend doing?" "He is improving," Leora replied. "But he cannot travel yet." "Then we stay," Ethan said, without hesitation. Leora blinked. "But your unit." "I'm not leaving you too," he interrupted softly but firmly. "Not now." She felt the warmth again. He didn't even think about it. He stayed because he wanted to, because he cared. The shelter hummed softly as the generator warmed the air. Ethan began checking the supplies, counting rations, adjusting the old medical scanner, and fixing a loose panel near the entrance. Leora sat beside him, handing him tools whenever he asked. They moved in harmony again, just like when carrying the injured Talon. "You're good with repairs," Ethan said. "We learned after the war," Leora replied. "Machines keep us alive," he nodded. "Same for humans." At one point, Ethan needed a small light for the panel, so Leora leaned over with a lantern. He glanced up, and for a moment, their faces were closer than either expected. Leora felt heat rise in her cheeks and quickly looked away. "Sorry," she whispered. "It's okay," Ethan said gently, smiling a little. There was no tension, only a growing familiarity between them. Hours later, Leora stepped outside the shelter to gather small herbs that grew along the hillside. These herbs helped reduce pain for the injured Talon. Ethan followed her outside, not because he didn't trust her, she understood that now, but because he was keeping watch over her safety. The valley below them looked more peaceful in the soft afternoon light. Broken metal pieces glimmered like scattered jewels. Birds flew above, bringing a sense of life back to a place that once felt dead. "It's strange," Leora said quietly. "This valley used to be full of danger. But now, with you here, it feels different." Ethan looked surprised. "Different how?" "Safer," she answered honestly. He seemed touched by her words. I'm glad. She knelt to gather herbs, but her hands shook slightly. Ethan noticed. Are you all right? Yes, she whispered. Just thinking. About what? She looked at him, her silver eyes soft. About how much I misunderstood your people. Ethan sat beside her. Fear does that. It makes whole planets believe things that aren't true. Leora twisted a small herb between her fingers. You broke every myth I learned. Good, he said gently. Myths hurt more than truth. For a moment they just sat there, the wind brushing lightly across their faces. Ethan finally stood. Let's head back. Our friend needs those herbs. But halfway back, they heard something. A distant rumble. Soft at first, then stronger. Ethan tensed immediately. Get behind me. Leora obeyed without thinking. She trusted his instincts now. Ethan raised a small scanner from his pack and pointed it toward the valley. Movement, he said. 2 signals. Humans? She asked. He shook his head. Talon scouting drones. Leora's breath caught. If they see you. I know, Ethan said quietly. They still think humans are the enemy. The drones grew louder, metallic wings buzzing through the air. Ethan grabbed Leora's hand, not in fear, but to guide her, and pulled her toward a rocky ledge. Stay low, he whispered. She crouched beside him, their shoulders touching. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and calm, guiding her own breathing. The drones swept across the valley, scanning the area. Ethan kept his hand near his scanner, but never pulled a weapon. He didn't want to fight. He just wanted to keep them safe. After a long moment, the drones changed direction and flew away. Leora exhaled softly. You protected me again. Ethan shook his head. I just didn't want anyone getting hurt. You held my hand, she said quietly. He blinked. Did that bother you? She looked down at their hands, still close. Ethan didn't reply at first, but she saw the gentle warmth in his eyes. They walked back to the shelter together. The air felt different now, full of something unspoken but growing. Inside the shelter, the wounded Talon looked more awake. You two were gone long, he said. We gathered herbs, Leora replied quickly, trying to hide the blush in her cheeks. And kept out of trouble, Ethan added. Leora crushed the herbs and mixed them into warm water. The injured alien drank slowly, color returning to his skin. After a moment, he looked at Ethan. You risked being seen by my people, he whispered. If they found you, they would assume you were a threat. Ethan shrugged lightly. I don't blame them for being afraid. But I'm not leaving until you're both safe. Leora felt her chest warm again. She wondered how one human could change so many beliefs in such little time. As the evening settled, Ethan set a small light in the center of the shelter. Leora sat across from him, her legs folded beneath her. The light cast soft shadows across his face. You are different from every story I ever heard, she said gently. Ethan's eyes softened. And you are nothing like what humans were told about Talons. He smiled slightly. But I'm glad the stories were wrong. Leora hesitated before speaking again. Ethan, when you look at me, are you afraid? He looked straight into her eyes, steady and calm. No. Not even a little. She felt the warmth again, stronger than before. It wrapped around her heart in a way that made her breath tremble. For a long moment they simply held each other's gaze, saying nothing. Then the injured Talon's soft snore broke the silence, and they both smiled awkwardly, looking away. But the connection stayed. Later, Ethan lay down to rest again. Leora stayed awake, watching over both him and the injured alien. The shelter felt peaceful, but she sensed something changing inside her. She didn't fear Ethan anymore. She didn't fear his strength, his instincts, or his presence. Instead, she trusted them. She trusted him, and she knew something important. Her heart was changing, her beliefs were changing, her world was changing, and Ethan was the reason why. Morning arrived softly inside the small shelter. The light from the generator faded as natural daylight slipped in through the doorway. Leora woke first, stretching her arms slowly. Ethan still slept near the wall, one arm across his chest, looking peaceful for the first time since she met him. The injured Talon also seemed better. Breathing calmly and resting without pain, Leora stood quietly and stepped outside. The valley looked different in the gentle early light. Dust shimmered like tiny stars. The wind was soft, and for the first time the valley felt alive instead of broken. She closed her eyes and let the breeze wash over her. A moment later she heard footsteps behind her. Ethan stepped out, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "You're up early," he said with a tired smile. "So are you," she replied. He chuckled softly. "I'm a soldier. I always wake early." She looked at him closely. His face was calmer today, softer. "You look better," she said. "So do you," he answered gently. Leora felt warmth fill her cheeks. She looked away toward the hills. "He is strong," she said, speaking of the injured Talon. "He will recover." "That's good news," Ethan said. They stood together in silence, but it was a warm silence. A peaceful one. After a moment, Leora spoke again. "Ethan, when the drones came yesterday, you were more worried about me than about yourself." "Of course," he said. "Why of course?" she asked softly. He turned toward her fully. "Because your life matters. Because I didn't want anything to hurt you." She felt her heart beat faster. His words were simple, but they held more meaning than she expected. She wrapped her arms around herself, unsure how to respond. Ethan noticed her unease. "Did I say something wrong?" he asked gently. "No," she whispered. "You said something right." Ethan smiled, relieved. Leora looked across the valley again, thinking. "After the war, I didn't think I would ever speak to a human. I thought all humans were dangerous." She turned back toward him, meeting his eyes. "But you changed that." Ethan's voice softened. "I'm glad." Inside the shelter, the injured Talon stirred. Leora and Ethan walked back in together. "You two are always standing outside together." The wounded alien teased with a weak smile. Ethan scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "Just checking the area. Just fresh air," Leora added quickly, though her face warmed again. The injured Talon grinned faintly. "I see." Ethan moved closer. "How do you feel?" "Better. Strength is returning," the Talon said. "I think I can walk short distances now." "That's good," Ethan said. "We should move soon. This place isn't safe forever." "Where will we go?" Leora asked. "My people have a recovery outpost just across the ridge," the Talon said. "But," he looked at Ethan with concern, "humans are not allowed there." Leora felt a knot in her chest. She looked toward Ethan, waiting for his reaction. He took a slow breath. "Your people will think I'm a threat." "They might," the Talon admitted. "Even if you saved me," Leora stepped closer to Ethan. "Then I will speak for you." He looked surprised. "Leora, you don't have to." "Yes," she said firmly. "I do." The injured Talon watched them quietly, noticing the way they moved closer without thinking, the way their voices softened around each other. "You trust him," the Talon said gently to Leora. "I do," she said without hesitation. Ethan's expression softened with something deep and quiet. They prepared to leave the shelter. Ethan carried the supply pack. Leora supported the injured Talon, and together they climbed the hillside slowly. The air grew colder as they reached the ridge. When they looked down from the top, they could see faint signs of activity, a small Talon outpost hidden between rocks and trees. Ethan stopped walking. Leora turned to him. "Why did you stop?" He took a deep breath. "If I go down there, they might think I'm trying to attack." "You are with us," she said. "That might not be enough," Ethan replied. The injured Talon nodded sadly. "Some may still fear humans. Then we show them the truth," Leora said firmly. She lifted her chin slightly. "You saved our lives. I will not let them treat you as an enemy." Ethan met her eyes. "Leora, I don't want to cause trouble for your people." "You won't," she said softly. "Not while I stand beside you." Her words were steady, full of silent strength. Ethan felt something warm inside him, something deep. They continued walking, but Ethan stayed half a step behind, giving Leora the lead. The Talon guards spotted them from a distance. Several stepped forward quickly, alarm spreading across their faces when they saw the human. "Stop," one guard shouted. "Human, identify yourself." Ethan raised his hands slowly. "I'm not here to fight." The guards tightened their grips on their weapons. Leora stepped in front of Ethan immediately. "Lower your weapons. He is under my protection." The guards looked stunned. "Leora, you cannot defend a human. It is forbidden." "He saved our brother," she said loudly. "He carried him across the valley when no one else could. He protected us, and he harmed no one." The injured Talon stepped forward shakily. "She speaks truth. This human risked everything for me." The guards exchanged uncertain glances. One guard approached Ethan carefully, scanning him from head to toe. "Why would a human protect a Talon?" Ethan answered simply, "Because it was the right thing to do." His voice carried no fear, no anger, just calm honesty. The guard hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapon. The others followed. Leora exhaled in relief. The guards guided them into the outpost. Medical healers rushed forward to help the injured Talon. Ethan stepped aside, giving them space. Leora stayed beside him. After a moment, the lead healer approached Leora and Ethan. "He will recover, thanks to your human companion." The healer looked at Ethan with respect instead of fear. "Your actions today will be remembered." Ethan nodded politely. "I'm glad he'll be all right." But as the healer walked away, Ethan grew quiet. Leora noticed instantly. "What is wrong?" He took a slow breath. "I should go now. Your people are safe. They don't need me here." Her heart tightened painfully. "You want to leave?" He shook his head gently. "Not want, but maybe it's better." "Better for who?" she whispered. Ethan hesitated. "Humans and Talons. We don't mix well." "Not yet, but you and I." She stopped herself, unsure how to finish. Ethan looked at her with eyes full of warmth. "You changed my beliefs too, Leora." She stepped closer. "Then don't leave." He looked surprised. "You stood by me," she said softly. "When I feared everything. You protected me. You stayed when you didn't have to." Her voice trembled slightly. "I don't want you to walk away now." Ethan stared at her, struggling with his own feelings. "Leora, if I stay, your people might not accept it." "Then they will learn," she said firmly. "Just like I learned." He smiled softly, a warm, gentle smile that made her chest feel light. "You're brave. So are you," she whispered. The wind moved softly around them, carrying quiet moments they both felt but didn't speak. Finally, Ethan lowered his head in a calm, thoughtful surrender. "I'll stay. If you want me to." "I do," she said without hesitation. He lifted his eyes, and the look they shared was full of unspoken trust. A bond stronger than fear, stronger than myths, stronger than war. The injured Talon watched from his resting bed, smiling faintly. It seems humans and Talons are not so different after all. Leora and Ethan stood together, facing the quiet outpost, the peaceful valley, and the changing world before them. Fear had built walls between their species, but kindness had broken them, and trust had replaced them. Leora looked at Ethan with soft, steady eyes. "You broke every myth I ever believed." Ethan smiled gently. "So did you." They didn't need to say more. Their story had already changed two worlds.